When the Mask Falls Off, 7 Masks of the Modern Man, by Sansere Monique. Part 1. When the Mask is On. Chapter 1. The Provider: Why Stability Can Be a Front. When a man shows up with money in his hand, it feels like love, at least at first. When Chief slid in, he played the role flawlessly. The provider, the protector, the man who could fix the cracks in my world with his wallet and his presence. For months, he gave without hesitation. Rent, bills, food. He wanted me to feel covered, and for a while, I did. I won't lie. There was a comfort in knowing someone was willing to shoulder the weight I had been carrying alone for far too long. But here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Stability can be an illusion. Money can dress itself up as love, but it doesn't always carry the weight of commitment. It doesn't always come with consistency, or safety, or a man standing in front of you saying, "I'll stay." Sometimes it's just a front, a mask that looks like devotion, when in truth it's just performance. I loved California, but I needed a clean slate. I loved the beach and the sunshine, but there I experienced the years of heaviness. I told him I was ready to move, ready to come to Georgia, ready to rebuild in a place where silence wouldn't suffocate me. I wanted him to be more than a provider. I wanted him to be my anchor. But that was when the mask started slipping. Because providing doesn't always mean protecting, and protecting doesn't always mean staying. Chief knew how to open his wallet. What he couldn't do was open his chest. And what good is a provider if his presence is conditional, if his love is inconsistent, if the stability is built on sand instead of stone? Some men wear the provider mask because they know it works. It looks noble. It looks manly. It looks like leadership. But peel it back, and you'll see what I saw. A man who could pay the bills, but not build the future. A man who could silence my worries for a night, but not still the storm in my chest. A man who could step in for a season, but not stay for the harvest. Stability, I learned, isn't about money. It's about presence. It's about consistency. It's about building something that doesn't collapse the moment the mask falls off. The lesson hidden in the mask. Men know how powerful the provider mask is. Money looks like love. Money looks like security. But if you're not careful, you'll confuse temporary provision with permanent commitment. Here are the red flags I wish someone had taught me. Watch his consistency, not his generosity. A man can hand you money, but if he disappears emotionally or physically when you need him most, his provision is a performance, not a promise. Pay attention to his response to your future. Talk about where you want to go in life. A true provider leans in and plans with you. A masked provider goes quiet, changes the subject, or resists moving forward. Notice what he invests besides money. Does he give you time, attention, affection? Or is his financial support the only thing keeping the relationship afloat? If money is his only contribution, the mask is already cracking. Ask yourself, would he still show up if the money ran out? Stability isn't built on transactions. It's built on presence. If the money disappeared tomorrow, would you still feel safe with him? If the answer is no, you already know the truth. Chief did provide for me when I needed it most, and I'll never erase that fact. But providing doesn't make a man a protector. And stability that can't weather a move, a storm, or a season of struggle, it isn't stability at all. The mask always falls off. The key is learning to recognize the shine of the mask before you confuse it with the shine of a crown. Chapter 2. The Lover: Why He Pulls You Close. Then far away he kissed me like he had never kissed anyone before. That's what it felt like, anyway. His lips pressed urgency into mine. His hands searched like he was trying to memorize me, and in that moment, I believed him. Every single part of me believed I was the only woman in his world. But the next morning, silence. The lover is tricky. He doesn't vanish because he doesn't care. He vanishes because he does, and caring terrifies him. He wants intimacy, but only in the doses he can control. So he pulls you close, then drifts away. To him, closeness feels like fire, and fires burn. You think he's cold when he pulls back. You tell yourself it's rejection. But what it really is regulation. He's trying to breathe, trying to remember who he was before you became the air in his lungs. This is the cycle of The lover pulls you close, so he can taste the feeling of being wanted. Pushes you away because he's scared he'll drown in the weight of your wanting him back. Comes back again because your absence is louder than his fear. And you're left wondering if you imagined the closeness. You replay his hands on your face, his laughter spilling into your chest, his whispered promises that felt too honest to be lies. The mask of the lover is this. He pretends his distance is about you, but it's really about him. His past, his insecurities, his inability to trust that something good won't destroy him. How to spot him. 1. He romanticizes you in private, but hesitates in public. 2. His attention feels like sunlight, but his silence feels like punishment. 3. He apologizes without changing his behavior. How to survive him. Don't chase when he pulls away. Don't beg when he shuts down. Don't twist yourself into knots trying to decode silence. The cure isn't in proving you're enough. It's in knowing you already are. The lover doesn't mean to break you. He just doesn't know how to hold you without breaking himself. And one day, when the mask falls off, you'll see it clearly. The closeness wasn't fake, but the distance wasn't either. They were both real. And you'll have to decide if you can live in a love that loves you in fragments. Chief taught me this mask without ever saying a word. He would pull me close, kiss me like I was the only woman who had ever existed, then push me away with silence that lasted days. He would hold my son's hand like a father, then turn around and disappear like a stranger. He confessed truths only when cornered, but even his honesty came with an expiration date. The lover mask isn't about devotion, it's about illusion. He showed me that intimacy could be a performance, a dance of fire and retreat, passion and absence. He made me feel chosen in one moment and discarded in the next. Not because he didn't want me, but because closeness terrified him more than distance comforted him. That's when I realized, when a man's love swings like a pendulum, it isn't love at all. It's the mask of the lover, and the lesson is simple. If he pulls you close just to remind you how far away he can stand, then the love you feel isn't his. It's the one you keep giving, hoping the mask will finally fall away. Chapter 3. The Philosopher. We weren't even face to face when it happened. We were texting, which somehow made it worse. Because when words arrive without tone, without expression, you're left to fill in the blanks with your own fears. I asked him the question straight out. No metaphors, no poetry, just raw, unshaken truth. Can you truly be faithful to me? For a moment, the dots danced on my screen. My heart beat with each flicker, as if the typing bubbles could tell me what kind of man he really was. Then his reply came. Faithful is a matter of perception. Everyone defines it differently. What you see as betrayal, another person might see as freedom. What you see as loyalty, someone else might see as limitation. It's all about how you choose to perceive it. He had a similar response when we had a conversation about truth. I stared at his words, rereading them until the letters blurred. He hadn't said yes. He hadn't said no. He'd said nothing at all. But dressed it up so beautifully, I almost felt guilty for even asking. That's the danger of the philosopher mask. It doesn't outright lie. It floats above the truth, cloaked in intellect, making you believe the problem isn't his evasion. It's your inability to grasp his depth. I wanted clarity. He gave me clouds. I wanted a promise. He gave me perception. And because I loved him, I let myself get lost in the fog. I told myself maybe he was right. Maybe I was clinging too hard to words like faithful. Maybe love was supposed to be fluid, but deep down, I knew. If a man can't answer a simple question with certainty, he's already told you everything you need to know. Gaslighting doesn't always come wrapped in anger. Sometimes it arrives dressed as wisdom. Sometimes it looks like philosophy, but feels like madness. And the longer you stare at the words on the screen, the more you question your own reality. Chief made me believe I was asking too much, when really, I was asking the bare minimum. The philosopher mask wasn't brilliance, it was evasion. And perception wasn't a lesson, it was his excuse. How to see through the philosopher mask. Here's the thing, when a man wants to love you, he doesn't make it complicated. He doesn't answer a yes or no question with a lecture on perception. He doesn't twist simple truths into philosophy. He doesn't leave you rereading the same text 100 times, trying to decode it like scripture. If you want to recognize the philosopher mask, pay attention to how you feel after you talk to him. Do you feel clear, or do you feel foggy? Do you feel seen, or do you feel small? Love should ground you, not make you dizzy. Men who wear this mask thrive on vagueness. They avoid direct answers. They turn questions back on you. They use words that sound deep, but leave you unsettled. That's not wisdom, that's a tactic. So here's how to deal with it. Don't debate the fog. If his answers are always vague, stop chasing clarity in his riddles. Pay attention to the fact that he chooses not to be clear. That is your answer. Trust your gut, not his words. If your chest feels tight and your instincts say something is off, believe that. No philosophy in the world can erase that signal. Ask yourself, did I get an answer, or did I get a performance? If you can't repeat back to yourself a clear yes or no, you've been given smoke instead of substance. Refuse to play teacher's pet. Men in this mask want you to feel like the student to their wisdom. Don't let yourself be enrolled in a class you didn't sign up for. A man who wants you will give you clarity, not riddles. He will give you peace, not paranoia, and you don't need to be a philosopher to know the difference. Chapter 4. The Silent. Silence doesn't arrive like a storm. It doesn't slam doors or break glass. It doesn't shout or curse or leave scars you can point to later. It arrives slowly, like a room where someone keeps turning down the volume until you don't realize the music has stopped. Chief wore many masks, but this one, silence, was the most painful of all, because there's no arguing with silence. You can't fight words that never arrive. You can't reason with a blank screen or beg an empty phone to light up with his name. The silent mask isn't about absence, it's about control. When he went quiet, I felt the ache of being erased. Every hour stretched into doubt, every day into self-blame. Did I say too much? Did I love too hard? Did I push him away with the very closeness I craved? Silence doesn't just leave you lonely. It makes you question whether you were ever wanted at all. The cruel irony is that it wasn't always silence. Some days he'd talk to me from morning until night. The kind of conversations where you lose track of time, where laughter feels like glue holding you together, where you almost believe this is what love is supposed to feel like. And then, just as easily, he'd vanish. Days of nothing, no call, no text, no explanation. It stung more because I had asked him in the beginning if he could handle talking to me every day. I wasn't asking for the moon, just consistency, just presence. He looked me in the face and said, I don't talk to anyone every day. Straight, unflinching. Like the idea itself was absurd. And yet, I stayed. Even after knowing the truth of his capacity, I stayed. At first, I swore I wouldn't allow it. I told myself I had boundaries. 3 days, that was my limit. If I didn't hear from him within 3 days, it was too much. It was unacceptable. But silence has a way of softening your backbone. It whispers, be patient. He'll come around. And before I realized it, I was lowering a standard I swore I'd never bend. 3 days stretched into 4, 4 into 5, and eventually, I found myself settling into a rhythm of only speaking to him once a week. I called it compromise, but really, it was surrender. And that's why this mask cuts the deepest. Because silence is harder to forgive than lies. Lies at least acknowledge your existence. Silence makes you invisible. I remember nights staring at my phone, refreshing the screen even though I knew nothing new would appear. The absence of his words was louder than any argument we could have had. Silence screams without sound. It tells you everything you never wanted to hear, without speaking at all. The cruelest part, he knew exactly what it did to me. Silence wasn't forgetfulness. It was intentional. A mask he slipped on when he wanted space without accountability. When he wanted me to chase, when he wanted me to punish myself in his place. And I did. God, I did. I punished myself over and over. I dissected every conversation, every look, every touch, trying to find the moment I lost him. But the truth was, I didn't lose him. He left. Not with words, not with explanations. Just with silence. The silent mask is the hardest to strip away because you can't grab hold of it. There's nothing there. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the mask isn't covering his face at all. It's covering yours, reflecting back every fear, every insecurity, every doubt you've ever had about your worth. But here's what I've learned. Silence says more than words ever could. If a man's quiet leaves you shattered, then his love was never strong enough to hold you. A man who wants you will not starve you of sound. He will speak, even when it's messy, even when it's hard, because silence might feel safe for him, but for you, it's destruction. And destruction is not love. How to recognize the silent mask early. The silent mask is dangerous because it doesn't show itself right away. In the beginning, he'll talk to you for hours. He'll fill the silence so beautifully that you won't even imagine he could ever withhold it from you. That's why it hurts more when he does. But if you watch closely, you can catch it before it consumes you. Here's how to peep it early. Listen to what he tells you about himself. Chief told me straight to my face, I don't talk to anyone every day. That was the truth. I just didn't want to believe him. When a man tells you who he is, don't romanticize him into who you want him to be. Watch for inconsistency. If he can talk to you all day one day and disappear the next, that's not balance, it's instability. A man who wants you will create a steady rhythm, not a roller coaster. Notice how you feel during the quiet. If silence makes you anxious, desperate, or self-blaming, it's not healthy. Real love doesn't leave you gasping for attention like oxygen. And here's what to do about it. Set your boundary early and stick to it. If your limit is 3 days with no contact, don't bend it into a week just to keep him. If you have to lower your standards to hold on to him, you're not being loved, you're being managed. Call the silence what it is. Don't make excuses like he's busy or he's not a phone person. Everyone makes time for who they want. If he goes quiet, it's a choice. Refuse to chase. Silence is often bait. The moment you start over-texting or begging for a response, you've stepped into his trap. Step back instead. Let his silence echo back to him. Ask yourself, is this peace or punishment? Love should feel like home, not detention. If his silence feels like punishment, it's not love, it's control. The earlier you recognize the silent mask, the easier it is to walk away. Because once you normalize silence, once you adapt to it, you'll wake up one day and realize you've taught yourself to live starving and call it love. Chapter 5, The Player. The player mask doesn't always look like fast beginnings and quick exits. Sometimes, it looks like history. Years of friendship. Years of knowing each other so well that you believe you're immune to the games. Other people fall victim too. That's what made Chief dangerous. He wasn't a stranger who swooped in with charm and disappeared when the thrill was gone. He was someone I trusted, someone I let close, someone I thought couldn't possibly treat me like I was disposable. But even history can't protect you from a man addicted to novelty. With Chief, the pattern was subtle. We'd have days where the connection was electric. Talking from morning until night, laughing, planning, dreaming. On those days, he made me feel like I was everything. But then came the shift, the silence, the space, the slow withdrawal, not because I had changed, not because the love was gone, but because for him, stillness was boring. He needed the chase, the newness, the stimulation of something, or someone else. I learned this the hard way when I found out how easily he could slip into other women's lives, even when mine was open wide for him. That's what players do. They aren't always chasing love. They're chasing the rush of being wanted in multiple places at once. And the cruelest part, he could look me in the eye with tenderness and still betray me the same week. Because to a player, love and novelty don't cancel each other out. They coexist. He could care for me and still crave someone else. He could want me but still want variety. That was the mask. The player doesn't play because he's missing love. He plays because novelty rules him more than love ever will. And once you realize that, you stop asking why you weren't enough. You were always enough. He just needed more than enough, and that's not your burden to carry. How to recognize the player mask. Not every player looks the same. Some wear the mask boldly, others hide it under romance or even friendship. But they all have one thing in common. Novelty rules them. The different kinds of players. The obvious player. He's flashy, flirtatious, and never hides that he likes attention. You know what he is before you even catch feelings. His honesty makes him dangerous. Because you convince yourself you can change him. The silent player. He doesn't brag about women, but they're always there. He might not flaunt it, but the trail is there if you look closely. Social media likes, sudden disappearances, inconsistencies in his story. He thrives in the shadows. The intellectual player. He cloaks his games in depth, talks about freedom, perception, not being owned. He makes disloyalty sound enlightened. He'll convince you you're too traditional for wanting loyalty, when really he just doesn't want to be faithful. The familiar player. This is the hardest one to spot, because he's someone you already know, a friend, an ex, someone with history. You let your guard down, thinking the past protects you. But the truth is, he can still play the same game, just with better access. How to deal with a player. Take his patterns seriously. If he tells you he doesn't do monogamy, believe him. If he shows you inconsistency, believe that too. Don't rewrite his behavior into a love story. Don't compete with novelty. You will never outshine new. You can be dazzling, brilliant, and irreplaceable. But novelty will always win in a player's mind. Refuse to fight for a spotlight, he keeps moving. Separate charm from commitment. A player's affection can feel intoxicating in the moment, but charm is not commitment. Learn to tell the difference before you confuse excitement with security. Protect your boundaries like oxygen. If you want consistency, say so. If you want loyalty, claim it. The moment you bend those boundaries to keep him, you're playing his game, and in his game, you'll always lose. Decide, don't wait. Players thrive on keeping you waiting to see. Waiting to see if he'll choose you. Waiting to see if he'll change. Don't wait. Decide. Either he meets your standard or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, you leave. The truth. A player doesn't become faithful because you're special enough. He becomes faithful because he chooses to be. And if novelty rules him more than love, his choice will never be you. Chapter 6. The victim, his favorite escape hatch. The victim mask was his favorite, because it excused everything. We had just spent the day together, all three of us. It was supposed to be family day. My son in the back seat, me in the passenger seat. Chief behind the wheel like he belonged there. For a moment, it almost felt real. Like maybe this could be our life if we let it. And then, halfway back to my hotel room, he said it. He admitted he had slept with another woman 2 weeks earlier. He said it calmly, without flinching. Like it was just a fact I needed to know. Like it wasn't a bomb he was dropping in the middle of our fragile little world. My chest tightened. For months, I had asked him the same question. Is there anyone else? I asked it directly, repeatedly. Sometimes through tears, sometimes through silence. And every time, he swore there wasn't. He looked me in the eyes and told me no. Now here he was, driving me and my son down the road, admitting he had been lying all along. When I reacted, when I let my voice shake, when I showed the sting of betrayal, he didn't apologize. He didn't acknowledge the weight of his deception. Instead, he turned it on me. He called me judgmental. He told me I didn't have the authority to behave as his woman. Not when it came to being upset about him with another woman. That's the victim mask. He cheats. But somehow I was the one accused of wrongdoing. He lied, but I was the one painted as cruel for not accepting it. He betrayed me, but I was told my reaction was the real problem. And the worst part? A piece of me almost believed him. That's how strong this mask is. It bends your reality until you wonder if maybe you're too harsh, too unforgiving, too much. It makes you carry the shame of the wound he created. I sat there in that car, my son humming softly in the backseat, realizing this wasn't love. This was survival. For him, not for me. Because every time the truth threatened to corner him, he slipped out through the same escape hatch. He knew if he played hurt long enough, I'd fold. I'd stop demanding. I'd stop expecting. I'd stop holding him accountable. The victim mask is the most convincing because it doesn't roar, it pleads. It doesn't fight, it folds. And it tricks you into thinking you're the one holding the knife when in reality, you're the one bleeding. Chief wasn't the victim that day. I was. But he wore the mask so well, I almost forgot. How to recognize the victim mask. The victim mask is one of the most manipulative because it feels compassionate. He doesn't fight your pain, he redirects it. He makes you feel guilty for holding him accountable. And before you know it, you're apologizing for the wound he created. How to spot it early. His mistakes always come with a story. If every time he hurts you, he follows it with the tale of how he has been hurt, that's the mask. Real accountability doesn't center his pain. It acknowledges yours. Your reaction becomes the problem. If you find yourself defending why you're upset, instead of him explaining why he lied or betrayed you, the script has been flipped. That's the mask at work. He makes honesty feel like a favor. When he finally admits the truth, it comes packaged like generosity. I'm telling you this because I trust you. But if the truth only comes after months of lies, it's not a gift. It's manipulation. You leave the conversation comforting him. That's the biggest red flag. If you confront him and end up soothing his ego or apologizing for your tone, you've just been pulled into his escape hatch. How to deal with it. Separate empathy from accountability. You can feel sorry for his past without excusing his present. Don't confuse understanding his wounds with accepting his mistreatment. Stay rooted in the facts. When he tries to shift the focus, bring it back. Yes, you've been hurt before. But you hurt me now. That's what we're talking about. Don't let him escape the point. Refuse to carry both loads. His pain is his to process. If every fight leaves you carrying his excuses and your disappointment, the relationship will break you before it heals him. Don't confuse silence with resolution. If he shuts down and slips into self-pity, it might feel easier to drop it. But dropped problems don't disappear, they fester. If he can't address the issue without turning himself into the victim, you're not building love, you're managing damage. Decide if you want to be his partner or his caretaker. You can't be both. If he always needs you to nurse his wounds to excuse his behavior, you'll never get the love you deserve. The truth, a man who wears the victim mask is telling you, I will never be responsible for how I hurt you. And once you accept that, you have to decide if you can live with it, or if you're strong enough to walk away. Chapter 7, The Hero Mask. The hero mask is seductive because it feels like rescue. It feels like the answer to every prayer you whispered into your pillow. He steps in when you're struggling, lifts the weight off your shoulders, and for a moment you believe he's everything you dreamed of. That was Chief, too. He loved to save me. When I needed help, he was there with solutions. Money, time, presence. He thrived in that role because it gave him something priceless. Admiration. He wore the hero mask like a crown, and I handed it to him willingly. But the hero mask isn't about consistency. It's about timing. He'd show up when it made him feel powerful, then disappear when I needed him most. He'd rescue me in grand gestures, then withhold in the everyday moments. And because I remembered the saving, I forgave the silence. Because he had played the hero once, I kept hoping he would again. I can still remember the night I told him. I didn't know how much longer. I could carry everything alone. He looked at me with such conviction, promised he'd never let me fall. And I believed him, because he meant it in that moment. That's the trap. Heroes believe their own promises. They love the shine of being admired more than the grind of being steady. What makes this mask dangerous is that it feeds you just enough to keep you waiting. You remember the day he came through, the time he saved you, the way he made you feel safe, and you cling to it like proof. But a hero who only saves you sometimes is no hero at all. Chief wasn't evil when he wore the hero mask. He wasn't cruel. He was convincing. He looked like the man who could fix it all. But heroes aren't measured by their entrances. They're measured by their consistency. And consistency was the one thing he could never give. Love doesn't need a savior. It needs a partner. And a man who plays hero without staying steady leaves you worse off than before. Because you're not just broken. You're broken with memories of the times he carried you. And those memories make it hard to let go. Because a piece of you keeps whispering, maybe he'll save me again. How to recognize the hero mask early. The hero mask shines bright in the beginning. And that's the danger. He swoops in, plays savior, and makes you believe he'll always show up like that. But true heroes don't come and go. They don't save you one day and abandon you the next. They don't love the stage more than the work. How to spot it early. He saves in grand gestures, but fails in small consistencies. If he'll loan you money or help with a crisis, but can't return a call, answer a text, or show up when promised, that's the hero mask slipping. He loves being admired for what he does. Pay attention to how often he brings up the ways he's helped you, as if you should never forget his contribution. A true partner doesn't need applause. His promises are bigger than his follow-through. He swears he'll never let you down. But when the moment comes, his actions are shaky. Promises without consistency are performance, not partnership. You forgive him because of what he once did. If you're excusing today's absence because of yesterday's rescue, you're hooked by the hero mask. How to deal with it. Don't confuse rescue with reliability. A man can help you in a moment of need without being a steady partner. Don't let one heroic act blind you to repeated disappointments. Test his consistency, not his speeches. Instead of listening to what he says he'll do, watch what he actually does over time. Consistency is the only true proof. Refuse to keep score in his favor. If he constantly reminds you of what he's done for you, recognize it for what it is. Leverage. Love isn't a debt you owe for past favors. Hold him to your standard, not his story. Just because he once saved you doesn't mean you have to keep waiting for him to do it again. Ask yourself, is he steady, or is he only a hero when it flatters him? The truth. A man wearing the hero mask is addicted to the high of being admired, not the responsibility of being consistent. And love doesn't need a stage, it needs a foundation. Part 2. When the mask falls off. Chapter 8. Spotting the cracks. Masks don't fall off all at once. They slip, they crack, they tilt just enough for you to see the man underneath, if you're willing to look. With Chief, the cracks showed up in whispers. A missed call that became a pattern. A promise that never made it past his lips. A story that shifted the second time he told it. Small fractures. Tiny inconsistencies. The kind of things you notice but explain away because love teaches you to become fluent in excuses. Other people noticed before I did. My friend Marie took one look at his picture and shook her head. He looks like a playa. A few of my followers said the same thing. They wrote comments like, he looks like he lies, or he's up to some shit. But I brushed it all off. Because I wasn't looking at him the way they were. I wasn't studying his face for signs. I wasn't reading his eyes like the windows of the soul they were. I was stuck on his personality, on the way he made me feel, on who he was inside when he chose to let me see it. The truth. By the time I saw him again, after years apart, I was almost startled by how attractive he was. Like I had forgotten. Like I had been so focused on his energy and his mind that his face didn't even matter. And even then, not one time did I stop to really look into his eyes. Not once did I try to see what was hiding there. Maybe that was the biggest crack of all. The one I ignored before any of the others. Because eyes don't lie. They'll tell you everything you need to know. If you're brave enough to look past the charm, past the chemistry, past the mask. The cracks were there. In his stories. In his absences. In his eyes. And I didn't want to see them, because if I saw them, I'd have to do something about them. Here's the truth. Spotting cracks isn't about catching him. It's about saving you. Because once you see the first fracture, you get to decide. Do I let this spread until it breaks me? Or do I honor myself enough to walk before it shatters? How to spot the cracks early. The cracks are always there. They don't start big. They start small. So small you'll convince yourself they don't matter. But ignoring them doesn't protect love. It protects his mask. What cracks look like? Inconsistency. His words and actions don't line up. He promises, but he doesn't follow through. He texts all day, then disappears for days. That's not balance, it's fracture, deflection. When you ask questions, answers turn vague. He makes you feel dramatic for noticing the gap. A man who is honest doesn't make you feel guilty for wanting clarity. Your people see what you don't. Marie looked at his picture and saw a player. Strangers online said he looked like he lied. Pay attention when multiple people say the same thing. Sometimes they're seeing the mask you're too close to notice. The eyes, they really are the windows of the soul. Look past the charm and stare into them long enough to see what he's hiding. Restless eyes, guarded eyes, eyes that never truly meet yours. Those are cracks. What to do when you see them? Stop explaining them away. Don't cover them with excuses like he's tired or he's stressed. Cracks are cracks. Call them what they are. Test consistency. Instead of asking him for reassurance, step back and observe. Does he correct the pattern on his own, or does he let the fracture grow? His behavior in silence tells you more than his speeches ever will. Trust outside voices, but trust your own more. If people you respect keep warning you, don't dismiss them. But also, don't wait for outsiders to validate what you already feel in your gut. Decide early. The first crack is your chance to decide. Do I stay and hope it heals, or do I honor myself enough to leave before it spreads? The longer you wait, the harder it gets. The truth, you don't need to be a detective to spot cracks. You just need to be honest with yourself about what you see. Because love isn't about holding the mask in place. It's about being brave enough to let it fall. Chapter 9, The Confrontation Stage. The confrontation stage didn't come with slammed doors or screaming matches. It came with words. My words. A blog I wrote in a storm of hurt, trying to pour my confusion somewhere outside my body. I thought I was just telling my story. But once it was out there, other voices joined in. That's when his second ex-wife's cousin reached out. She told me he had cheated on her cousin with women in other countries. The kind of details you don't invent. The kind that sit heavy in your chest, because they ring too familiar. And then came the darkest part. Allegations from his first ex-wife, that he had violated their daughter. When I brought it to him, waiting for an ounce of truth, an ounce of remorse, all I got was denial. He said they were rumors. Lies, he told me. I had given those lies power by writing about them. He said his ex-wife only made those accusations to take his daughters away, to paint him as a monster so she could win custody. And for a second, I almost believed him, because the victim mask is convincing. It takes the ugliest truths and flips them into tragedies. With him cast as the persecuted hero, it makes you question your own judgment. It makes you wonder if you're betraying him just by believing what you've heard. But here's the thing, confrontation isn't about whether he can explain it away. It's about how the truth lands in your spirit. My spirit knew. My body knew. His words might have twisted the story, but they couldn't erase the pit in my stomach. The way my chest tightened. The way I could feel that something wasn't right. That's when I realized, the confrontation stage isn't just about arguments. It's about standing face to face with the ugliest version of someone you love and choosing whether to see them, or the mask they're desperate to hide behind. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. How to handle the confrontation stage. The confrontation stage will shake you, because this is where truth and denial collide. This is where the mask starts slipping, but instead of falling, he clutches it tighter. He tells you it's all rumors. He tells you his ex is lying. He tells you you're the one making him look guilty just by asking the questions. How to spot it? Everything is someone else's fault. If every accusation comes with a finger pointed at an ex, a friend, or even at you, that's the mask. Innocence doesn't need to redirect. You feel guilty for even asking. When you bring up what you've heard and he flips it so you feel like the betrayer, that's not clarity, that's control. The story never matches the spirit. He may sound convincing, but your gut will tighten, your chest will ache. Your body knows when words don't align with truth. His explanations shift with convenience. Today, it's an ex lying for custody. Tomorrow, it's jealous friends. If the excuse changes but the pattern doesn't, you've found the crack. How to deal with it. Separate rumors from patterns. Even if you doubt what outsiders say, look at his actions. If the accusations mirror the way he treats you, don't dismiss them. Patterns speak louder than words. Don't let guilt replace discernment. You're not disloyal for asking questions. You're not judgmental for wanting the truth. Stop apologizing for seeking clarity in a relationship that should have given it freely. Anchor yourself in facts, not feelings. Write down what's been said, what he's admitted, what he's denied. Seeing it in black and white keeps you from getting lost in his storytelling. Decide what you can live with, whether the allegations are true or not. His reaction tells you everything. If he hides behind refuses accountability, or punishes you for asking, that's already your answer. The truth, the confrontation stage isn't about getting him to confess. It's about watching how he responds when the mask slips. Does he reach for honesty, or does he double down on illusion? That's what decides whether you can stay, or whether you finally see that it's time to go. Chapter 10. Choosing your exit or your boundary. There comes a moment when love no longer feels like love. When you're no longer asking, does he care? But instead whispering to yourself, can I survive this? That's the moment you stand at the crossroads. Exit or boundary? Do you leave, or do you draw a line so clear it forces him to show you who he really is? With Chief, I tried both. I set boundaries that bent until they broke. I told myself 3 days of silence was my limit, but I learned to accept a week. I told myself I'd never tolerate lies, but I let myself believe his explanations, even when my gut screamed otherwise. Every boundary I set turned into an exit sign I refused to walk through. My exit, when it came, wasn't loud or messy. It was plain, simple, and public. My blog entry when the mask falls off was my goodbye. Every word I wrote was a door closing, a line in the sand, a refusal to keep pretending. It was me saying the things I could never get him to hear when I said them directly. It was the end, written in ink and truth. But that's not how he interpreted it. When we finally talked about it, he flipped it back on me the way he always did. He said I had caused the drama. He told me I clearly didn't want peace. He told me that by writing the blog, I was the one who ruined us, as if my honesty, my refusal to stay silent, was proof of my betrayal, not his. Like I made him lack self-discipline. As if his choices, his lies, his betrayals, were somehow born from my inability to stay quiet about them. That's the victim mask again. The philosopher mask again. The silent mask again. All stitched together in a desperate attempt to make my exit look like his decision. But I knew better. The blog was my goodbye. Maybe not the kind of goodbye he would ever acknowledge, but the kind that freed me from waiting for his mask to finally fall off on its own. Exiting isn't easy. Neither is enforcing boundaries. Both require courage, both require grief, both require admitting the person you love is not the person you needed. But one thing is certain, choosing nothing will destroy you faster than choosing wrong. I learned that the hard way. Love can make you patient, but patience without reciprocity is self-betrayal. And the day you realize you've been more faithful to his potential than he has been to his promises, you finally see that the mask has fallen. The truth, choosing your exit or your boundary is not about punishing him. It's about protecting you. Because the mask may have belonged to him, but the damage was always yours to carry. How to know if it's an exit or a boundary? Every woman reaches this fork in the road. Do I keep fighting with boundaries? Or do I end it altogether? Both take strength, but the difference is simple. Boundaries are for men who want to do better. Exits are for men who prove they won't. Signs it's time to enforce a boundary. He stumbles but admits it. If he slips up, owns it, and shows effort to change, boundaries can work. A man who values you will treat your standards as guardrails, not restrictions. He respects your no. A boundary is only real if he honors it. If you say, I can't go more than 3 days without hearing from you, and he adjusts, that's effort. The conversation feels heavy but hopeful. Boundaries sting, but they don't suffocate. If you feel tense yet still safe, there's room to build. Signs it's time to exit. He flips the script. If every time you confront him, you become the problem, judgmental, dramatic, too intense, that's not love. That's manipulation. He punishes honesty. If telling your truth, like writing a blog or voicing your pain, makes him cast you as the villain, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a performance where his mask must stay intact. Your body already knows. Anxiety, sleepless nights, a pit in your stomach every time his name flashes on your phone. Your body knows the truth long before your heart accepts it. How to deal with this pushback? Stand firm. When he says you're causing drama, remind yourself, drama is what he created. Honesty is what you chose. Don't negotiate with gaslighting. You don't need to convince him your boundary or exit is valid. If he won't respect it, that's the answer. Protect your peace like oxygen. You don't owe him silence, submission, or self-betrayal just to keep him. The truth, boundaries and exits aren't punishments, they're self-preservation, and the moment he tries to convince you that protecting yourself makes you the problem, that's your confirmation. It was always time to choose you. Chapter 11. Healing without waiting for his apology. We grow up believing closure is a conversation, that one day he'll sit across from us, admit what he did, and say the words that will sew us back together. I'm sorry. But some apologies never come. And if they do, they arrive years too late, wrapped in excuses, coated in self-defense, hollow in the places that matter most. Chief never gave me the apology I wanted. Not for the lies. Not for the betrayals. Not for the nights I drowned in silence or the mornings I woke up questioning my worth. Instead, he gave me explanations, excuses, philosophies about perception, claims of victimhood. He gave me everything but responsibility. And for a long time, I told myself I couldn't heal until he did, that my wholeness was locked inside his ability to acknowledge the ways he broke me. But waiting for an apology from someone who won't give, it is like waiting at an airport for a plane that never lands. You will grow old at that gate. You will die at that gate. Healing didn't come the day he admitted anything. Healing came the day I realized I didn't need his words to validate my pain. My tears were proof enough. My nights alone were proof enough. My body's ache, my mind's exhaustion, my spirit's fight to keep believing in love, all of that was evidence. I didn't need a confession. I was already living with the crime scene. The apology I wanted from him, I had to give myself. I had to say, I'm sorry I didn't listen to my gut sooner. I'm sorry I lowered boundaries I swore were sacred. I'm sorry I made myself small to fit into his masks, and then I had to forgive myself for it. That's the thing about healing. It doesn't wait for him. It waits for you. It waits for the day you finally choose peace over answers, freedom over explanation, yourself over him. And when you reach that day, his silence, his denial, his lack of apology will no longer hold power, because your healing won't be borrowed from his mouth. It will be built from your own courage. The truth, the only closure you need is the decision, not to keep bleeding for a man who never learned how to bandage his own wounds, how to heal without his apology. An apology feels like the final piece of the puzzle. But when the man who hurt you refuses to give it, you have two choices: wait forever at the empty gate, or build your own closure. Healing without his words is harder, but it's also freer, because it puts your wholeness back in your hands. Steps to heal without waiting on him. 1. Acknowledge the wound out loud. Say what happened, even if it's just to yourself. He lied, he cheated, he abandoned me, he gaslighted me. Naming it makes it real. Don't shrink your pain down to make it easier to carry. 2. Stop rehearsing his lines. Let go of the fantasy where he finally admits everything. Rerunning that imaginary apology keeps you tied to him. Trade the someday he'll say it loop for, I don't need his permission to heal. 3. Write your own closure. Journal it, blog it, whisper it into the night if you have to. Create the words he never gave you. Tell yourself the truth. I deserved better. I was worthy of love. His failure wasn't proof of my inadequacy. 4. Forgive yourself first. Too often, the person we hold hostage is ourselves. Forgive yourself for staying too long, for bending too much, for believing his masks. You are not foolish for loving. You are human. 5. Replace the why with what now. You may never know why he did it, but you can decide what you will do with the rest of your life. Healing begins when you stop interrogating the past and start creating the future. How to recognize your healing. You no longer need his confession to validate your pain. The memories sting, but they don't consume you. You start smiling at yourself again without asking for permission. The truth, his apology might never come. And even if it does, it won't undo the damage. Healing comes when you stop holding your heart hostage, waiting for him to unlock it, and realize the key was in your hand the whole time. Chapter 12. Rebuilding your self-worth and loving again without fear. Loving the wrong man will strip you bare. It will take your confidence, your softness, your laughter, and leave you staring in the mirror asking questions. You never thought you'd ask, am I enough? Am I too much? Will anyone ever love me the way I love them? That's where I am right now. It's only been 5 days since it ended, and I feel like I'm walking through a fog I can't see out of. I cry every day, sometimes once, sometimes twice, sometimes until the tears blur into exhaustion and sleep is the only relief. Why? Because endings aren't just about losing a person. They're about losing the version of yourself you built around them. Every plan I made with him, every future I pictured, every ordinary moment we shared, it all collapsed at once. My tears aren't just for him. They're for the woman I was when I still believed we had a chance. They're for the time I invested, the trust I gave, the faith I poured into his masks. They're for the hope that died along with us. Grief looks different when you're grieving someone who is still alive. It's harder, in some ways, because he's out there, breathing, moving, laughing, maybe even loving someone else, while you're left with an emptiness that doesn't make sense to anyone but you. That's why I cry, because the weight of love doesn't disappear the second you say goodbye. It lingers, heavy, and it demands to be felt. But even in the tears, I feel something else stirring, small, fragile, but there. A whisper reminding me that worth is not given by a man, so it cannot be taken by one either. Worth is mine. Mine when I'm chosen, mine when I'm abandoned, mine when I'm loved, mine when I'm left. Rebuilding isn't glamorous. It's crying in the shower so your child won't hear. It's eating dinner alone and convincing yourself it still counts as a victory. It's writing words like these while your heart is still bleeding. Because healing sometimes means building a ladder out of your own pain. And when it comes to loving again, I'm not there yet. Fear is still here. Fear still tells me that every smile hides betrayal, that every man wears a mask. Fear still curls up next to me at night, whispering, never again. But I know fear can't hold the pen forever. I will write a different story one day. The only way to love again is to trust myself more than I ever trusted him. To know that even if I fall, I will rise. That's the difference. Before, I trusted him with my heart. Now, I'm learning to trust me with it. Right now, the pain is fresh. But healing doesn't arrive in one day. It creeps in like dawn, slowly, then suddenly. And when it does, I'll remember this. Fear keeps you from falling, but it also keeps you from flying. And I deserve to fly. How to rebuild when it still hurts every day. Healing isn't linear. It doesn't show up clean and polished. It shows up in waves, sharp, messy, unpredictable. 5 days out, you're not supposed to feel strong yet. You're supposed to cry. You're supposed to ache. That's your body releasing everything you carried for him. What to do in the first weeks? Let the tears come. Crying isn't weakness. It's proof you loved deeply. Your tears are the body's way of washing out what can't stay inside. Don't rush yourself out of grief. Name what you lost. You didn't just lose him. You lost routines, dreams, safety, a version of yourself that believed in him. Write it down. Say it out loud. Grieving the whole picture is part of healing. Protect your triggers. Don't reread old texts. Don't scroll through photos. Don't just check his social media. Healing is hard enough without reopening the wound every hour. Anchor yourself in the present. When your mind spirals back into why or what if, pull yourself into what now. Take a walk. Make tea. Hold your child. Do one small thing that reminds you life is still moving. Surround yourself with mirrors of truth. Talk to friends who remind you who you are. Read words that remind you you're not crazy for hurting. Healing is easier when you're not carrying it alone. Signs you're rebuilding even if it still hurts. You cry, but the tears don't last as long as they did on day one. You start catching yourself before chasing his memory down rabbit holes. You begin to see glimpses of yourself outside of him, even if it's just in laughter with your child or a moment of quiet peace. The truth, rebuilding doesn't mean the crying stops overnight. It means that each day, the tears clear enough for you to see one thing. You're still here. You're still rising. And that alone is proof you'll love again. Without fear, without masks, without apology.